There is a new ChatGPT 5.6 model. It's called 5.6 Cyber. And a lot of people don't know about this yet, but it's pretty big in my opinion because it has some implications on the future of these model releases and access. We're going to talk about that. I'm also going to tell you a little bit more about this model, which is called Cyber. It's released under OpenAI, and I will say right off the bat, we do not have access to this model, but there are some really important notes about the capabilities of this model, what it can do regarding cybersecurity, and why this is important to us as consumers, and whether or not it's a good thing. First of all, welcome to the channel, guys. I'm Jess. I'm your host at The Latent Frontier. And I learned yesterday about this release, which is of the ChatGPT Cyber model. It is released on 5.6 Sol, so it is a sort of hybrid model that is built on Sol, but it has more capabilities than our regular ChatGPT 5.6 model does. It's not available to us in ChatGPT normal subscription modes. And the big thing, one of the big takeaways here is that while ChatGPT 5.6 only has about a 1.5% completion rate when we're really trying to use it for cybersecurity and things of that nature, this new cyber model has a 95% completion rate for cybersecurity and adjacent use cases. This means that it's much less restricted. It can do all sorts of work, whether it's defensive, offensive, cybersecurity work. And that's really big. In fact, it's already helped to find a couple of flaws in V8. I'm going to no, not the drink V8. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a moment. But it's actually found some pretty big flaws in a really big platform. So what is this whole cyber model? Why was it even built? Why aren't so many people talking about it? Well, in my opinion, the first thing, not that many people are talking about it yet, except for people who are really in the industry. Not a ton of people are talking about it yet because it's not available to consumers. So most people are not going to get access to it. And we're going to talk a little bit more about who does get access to it. And what does this thing do? It's basically an amped up ChatGPT 5.6 Soul model, but it's even better with security, finding unknown flaws, testing exploit chains. So, really digging into these cybersecurity issues and nuances, checking whether a flaw really works. So, it can not only find the flaws, it's going to go ahead and test and verify these flaws, but it's also going to help researchers validate fixes. And that's really important here. And I think that's central to this video, which is not going to be a long video, but I kind of wanted to dial you guys into this new development in the field. And the reason I like this, the defensive aspect of it, which makes sense, because when you have a really good offense, it's often said that turns into a good defense. And that is the case with these powerful models that are great with cybersecurity. Since it's going to be able to find these flaws, it's going to help people to patch flaws, fix flaws, and security issues in their systems. And this is really important right now, especially with so many different potent AI models coming into the fray. And this also kind of dives into a delicate or sensitive question here, and that is, well, if these models are so good at helping us defensively, shouldn't we as the public also be allowed access to these models? And what's going to happen in the future? When will the public have access to these types of models? Or will they ever get access to these models? Or will it only be certain organizations that OpenAI or Anthropic or otherwise are going to grant access to these models? Let's take a little, we'll look at that a little bit more here in the next slide. Or actually, in this slide, we talk a little bit about it as well. And that is, this is a sort of initiative by OpenAI. And I think it's a good idea that they're starting this initiative called Daybreak. And what this is it's a sort of program they're initiating with various labs, organizations, uh, corporations, organizations, etc., to allow them access to these models. And there are two major segments. You have Daybreak Blue and you have Daybreak Red. Daybreak Blue is still just your general 5.6 Sol model, but it's had some of the safeguards removed or adjusted. So most defensive teams are going to be able to apply, I believe that's how it's going to work, and they're going to be able to get access to Daybreak Blue, and they'll be able to do discovery, review, patches. Sounds like some lighter cybersecurity work, which is still valid and important defensive work. But there's also going to be some vetted experts. Only very select groups, organizations, or experts are going to get access to Daybreak Red. And this uses what I like to call a sort of hybrid Sol model, which is called 5.6 Cyber. And this model is really the model that has more advanced cybersecurity features, and it's actually much less restricted, right? It's really going to be good for red teaming, finding flaws, vetting flaws, testing, and so on and so forth. So Daybreak Red is really the team or the access that certain people will get to 5.6 cyber. And if you're an organization that wants to harden your systems, you want access to Daybreak Red. Now, here is the completion gap, which I was hinting at, and it is pretty big. So if we look at cyber, 5.6 cyber, it has a 95% completion rate. Whereas if you look down here where my cursor is at, just at 5.6 Sol or Daybreak Blue, which is basically 5.6 Sol with some of the guardrails removed, it has a 2% completion rate. And this means it's only completing 2% of your requests to handle these cybersecurity tasks or prompts. So it doesn't mean it'll necessarily be successful. What the completion rate means is it will actually attempt to do it, and it will complete your prompt insofar as it'll at least try to complete your prompt. So we could see cyber 5.6 cyber will actually go out and start completing your prompt 95% of the time, meaning only 5% of the time it's not going to try to handle your cybersecurity request. But with 5.6 Sol and Daybreak Blue, about 98% of the time, it just is not going to do it for you. It's just going to refuse to complete your prompt. So it'll say, I'm sorry, we can't do this, for example. So fewer refusals coming out of 5.6 cyber, and that alone makes it worth its weight in gold for these teams that are testing security, defense, and so on. And there's already, like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, there were already two really big cybersecurity flaws found in something in a program you're probably using every single day. And actually, there's been more than that, but they're not releasing details on some of the others yet because they're still getting the patches and getting everything fixed up. So it's already found these serious vulnerabilities. Two of them were in V8, which is actually in Chrome's engine, right? So it's the Google Chrome engine. There were two flaws. They already reported it to Google. Google patched it already and assigned a marker to it. But there are more findings, and there's reported issues that it's finding in other systems. So it's going to be doing some good work going out there and hardening systems that we're probably all using. So that is definitely worth mentioning. And I do want to give a shout out to OpenAI for at least starting an initiative to help with security defenses in the US and probably internationally, because it's not just in the US that we're using these systems like Google and these softwares and so on. So it's really good, but at the same time, it brings up some questions, some real concerns regarding access. Who gets the frontier? And if you know me, I'm always looking at the frontier of intelligence. We're looking at everything, the top models, we're looking at the top technologies emerging today and tomorrow. And we want to know where these trends are going. And that's a lot of what this channel is about. And I think part of the trend we're seeing, and we've already seen starting to develop, is that access is limited, access is fragmented. We saw that with Fable 5, and Fable 5 is no longer as accessible, even though it is still accessible. You have to have the higher up Anthropic plans to access it, and you have to pay through the API otherwise. And even the Anthropic Mythos model is not yet released to the public. So we know that these frontier labs are holding an ace up their sleeves. They're not necessarily pushing their top model out right away to the public. And part of this is a security issue, government and regulation issue, though technically, legally, they could release them. They just may get in some hot water with the government, which has recently released a voluntary regulatory framework for these frontier labs who can essentially voluntarily submit their models for review. And basically, this is going to apply primarily right now to Anthropic and OpenAI, which have the models that have the potentiality to be a threat. Now, when will we get the access to models to help harden our systems? A lot of organizations are probably asking these questions as well. Since this tool can be both defensive and offensive, it's of high value to a lot of organizations, companies, a lot of people, a lot of builders. And in the future, we may see more of this bifurcation where only certain organizations are getting access to certain models. And I hope that doesn't accelerate, because we want the access to the frontier of intelligence. We want everyone to be able to be on this level playing field. I know there is, you may call that naive in a way, but that's also probably the best way to really harden systems and defenses all throughout, is to allow everyone to use these models to increase their defenses, their cybersecurity, and so on. I'm very curious what you think about this. I wanted to get this quick video out to you guys just about ChatGPT 5.6 Cyber. Unfortunately, we cannot use it yet, but hopefully this initiative will do great good. I believe it will. I honestly do believe it's going to help a lot of organizations. It's going to help us indirectly by hardening a lot of the programs and software that we're using. And things like banking software, etc., could potentially reap some of these benefits, which is also going to trickle down to us folks who are using banks or all these other different software. So thank you for joining me, guys. I am Jess here, your host at the Latent Frontier. And if you enjoyed the video, if you'd like more information about AI, tech, and more, subscribe to the channel. I'm trying to get us up there. And until next time, guys, see you on the flip side.